If you found this video, it means that you might be on a writing journey and you have this story inside you that is waiting to be told. Or maybe you're in the middle of this process and you're fighting the writer's block, or you're feeling lost and unsure where to go in this darkness of unknownness. Or you might be at the end of it already and you just not sure how to finish it, or you feeling like starting from the scratch again. If that's the case, I know how you feel. I've been there more often than I wanted to. Hi, I'm Elena Panetta, and in this video I want to share the lessons I learned in my long journey of creating a graphic novel or comic book, whatever you want to call it. While my experiences are specific to the project I've been doing, I think it's applicable to any type of writing, especially the one that dealing with complex and challenging ideas. And what I'm going to do here is I'm not going to give you general advice, because you can just go to AI, ChatGPT, and it will help you with everything you need. But I'm going to talk about my personal experiences and what worked for me and what didn't. So do you have a calling that pulls you towards this idea or story inside you? It could be a big thing or could be tiny. It doesn't matter really. Follow it. I had those small callings for a while, and I just was happily ignoring them until this big calling came that I couldn't ignore anymore. So my big calling came when I had a near-death experience. And if you don't know what it is, I'll quickly try to explain it. It's one of those stories when you're flying through the tunnel towards the light, or you might see your deceased relatives, or you might see your body from the ceiling, or you can hear your relatives, your family in a different room. So there is no way you could have hear their conversations, but you actually can tell them later on what you've heard. According to research, millions of people have experienced it, even the scientists, researchers themselves. And what's fascinating about it is that the experience is actually very similar. It does not depend on our culture, society norms, gender, language. All of this doesn't matter, and it follows a specific pattern always. But of course, for everyone, it's a unique experience because they perceive information differently. And what's the most important about it is that it affects you for the rest of your life. Of course, it's like this whole thing is experience itself, but what comes after is much more powerful because it changes your perspective. It's almost like gives you lenses that you looking onto the world with. So of course I wanted to tell about it. I wanted to tell about those different stories, different experiences, and how people's life changed after that. And the problem is that I wasn't a writer. I was an artist. So I started to trying to express myself through my paintings, and here's some of them. So the problem was that, of course, very quickly I realized that there is no way I can express everything I want to through the paintings. So I started to look for different means of expression, and graphic novel was for me the most natural way because it combines images with words. And that was about 10 years ago. So now you have all these online courses, workshops. You can learn from the most experienced and most famous writers in the world. But back then it wasn't as common or available. So I started writing, and I struggled. And it was not like a struggle of having a writer's block. It was more like struggling, where do I even start with this? And later on I realized that, well, I actually need help. I need to learn how to do it. I decided to look for a mentor. And lucky for me, I just knew the perfect one. That was my professor at university. He is just an amazing human being, but he also an incredibly talented writer, artist, and a filmmaker. So I met with my professor and explained what I want to do as part of my postgrad. And he told me that he will only supervise me if, instead of writing this collection of stories, I'll write my own story about near death. And he explained that the reason why he asked me to do it is because to write the first novel is super hard, because you don't have this experience and knowledge to draw on. So it will be much easier for me to go into my own personal, deep understanding and draw from it. And he also said that I need to start writing not from the experience itself, but I need to start writing maybe from my childhood or something like that. So the readers will get attached to the character, they will care for this character before all this crazy stuff happens. And I said, well, but I don't want to write about myself. And he said, well, do you want anyone to actually read your book? Or you just want to write for the sake of writing? Because if you don't have this link, if people don't have the connections, you'll be not able to carry them through these difficult moments. And I was like, a character? Well, it's not a character. This is me. This is my life. I can't do this. So I actually said no. I was really, really upset, but I said, no, I can't do this. And I walked away. And I thought, okay, I'll just carry on. I'll kind of continue writing on my own. And after a while, just given up, because it was impossible for me to get anywhere without this even basic understanding of the steps I need to do to get where I wanted to be. It took me a few years to realize that actually it's not the type of calling that you could just like push away. And it's either you have to accept the challenge and accept everything that comes with it, or you have to accept that this will wither inside you and you lose all your passion, all your love for life, and you'll be just dragging your feet somehow through the rest of it. Sorry to be so dramatic. So I came back to my professor, and that's how my journey started. But now what I want to say is that despite the guidance, the mentorship, everything you can get, it's all up to you if you're going to make it to the end. And it's a lot of work. And what helped me at the very early stages is finding these ways or settings where I work most productively. For me, it was putting an audiobook into my ears and going into the city, just walking around. Even though it sounds crazy, but if you think of it, it's kind of almost like a double stimulation. First, you listening to someone's writing, good or bad, both is good. And at the same time, you're seeing the world unfolding around you, given this variety of options and ideas how you can shape your story. But this worked for me. And for you, it might be a completely different setting. Maybe you would work best in your home, on the couch, or maybe you work best in the nature. You need to find this place where you're most creative and most inspired. So that was my drafting stage, and I filled lots of notebooks with notes and ideas. And I would just walk in the city, sit down in a cafe, write down my ideas, or even just write notes while I walk. And looking back at these notes, I can see still that the bones of my story are still there. So, which is quite magical, because at the time I had no idea what I was doing, but it was still creating this very structure that is used in the novel now. So you need to trust that this will take you where you need to be. And that's hard because this writing process is messy. It's really you don't really understand that at times you don't even understand where you're going. And my project changed so many times, and I changed with it as well. And I think this is the power of the story you're writing, and that's why you need to trust it, because at the beginning where you start, you are not the same who you are at the end of it. So you need to embrace this unknownness, this messiness and challenges that comes with it, because they will shape you together with your story. And trust that the story will unfold the best way possible. Like right now, for me, near-death experience is not even the most important part of it. It's definitely still super important, but it's just a brief moment. The moment when everything changes, turns 180 degrees. But the story itself grown beyond that, and it's now about finding freedom, personal, political, spiritual, and finding the true self. So once you've written this hundreds of pages and you feeling lost inside this mess, what helped me is, hello, are you gonna jump and show yourself today? Push, Kriska, come on, Kriska, oh, you're so cute. Okay, here we go. Whoa, yeah, no, you're so cute. So even though you need to embrace this chaos, it's still good to create a roadmap. So once you've written like hundreds of pages and you don't know anymore where you're going and how to pull it all together, what helped me is to divide everything onto segments, onto episodes, and answer these questions. First, what is happening in this episode? What do we see? Second, what is actually happening in this episode? What are the underlying motives? Then, why do I want to keep this in the story? And the last one, can this be removed or combined with other sections? So that helped me to understand, to see the core of each episode, and to start seeing the bigger picture and being able to shift things around and form something that is more like a story than some madness on the page. Now I want to talk about procrastination. It might surprise you, but I'm a big fan of procrastination. And I'm not joking. I think procrastination is not our enemy, it's our friend. While the desire to control things, that's our real enemy. You see, the writing is actually not easy. Believe it or not. You know, and the only way to create something more or less meaningful is to unpack all of this deep emotional stuff inside you. And that's not easy. And that's what sometimes happening with us, because we genuinely try to avoid this confronting, painful things and facing them. And the procrastination is just leaving some space for it to evolve, to develop, especially when you're looking at it and thinking, okay, I know what's happening. I know why I feel this way. I'm just gonna let myself breathe. I'm gonna let myself feel. And hopefully in a day or two, I'm gonna move on. And that's much better than trying to control stuff and trying to force your story the way that doesn't feel right. Just let the procrastination do its thing. But that's, of course, you need to be mindful about what is actually happening behind the scenes in your brain, in your heart, and not just be like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna give up on the story altogether, or pretend I'm still writing, but I'm not. I think also it's very important not to feel down on yourself at these moments, because maybe it's the time to go back to the drafting process, add those extra bones that are missing in your story. And even if it feels that you have to rewrite the whole thing, it's not going to be rewriting completely, because you have built this huge foundation already. So I want to finish with my last lesson that I learned. And that's probably the most painful and difficult lesson. It's this accepting that I have to opened myself. So the thing is that all our personal stories, they're not personal really. They are talking about this universal truth. So now the novel is about childhood trauma as well, and about how it robs us of this joy and love that we need to live on. It's also about narcissistic abuse and neglect, and the devastating effect that it has on individuals, that's stripping away their self-worth, leaving them feeling never good enough, sending them into the spirals of addictions, of self-sabotage, or sometimes it turns people into monsters that looking for this power over others that's supposed to replace this inner self-worthlessness. My novel is also about how this small insignificant personal traumas can create all this misery that people living in, not only on personal but also on a global level. The rise of these narcissistic, sociopathic leaders that we see right now is rooted in these childhood traumas. My novel is also about war, manipulation, propaganda, but it's also about how to get on the other side, how to survive, heal, and thrive. So now I can see that the personal stories that are not that personal, they're actually universal. So that's why as humans we're so drawn to those stories, because it reveals something that we actually know all along, but we almost like didn't notice it. And then when we read other people's stories, we put those glasses again to see a different perspective on the world. And that helps us understand our own life. And that's why the stories are so powerful. So at the end, I want to thank you for watching this video. And if something resonated with you, please leave the comment below. I would really appreciate if you suggest me what you would want to hear, maybe in the future videos. And I want to say that I'm planning to create more videos and try to drill into the depths of specific subjects rather than kind of covering it all. And I have learned much more lessons, of course. This is just a selection that came to my mind at this stage. Thank you and good luck on your creative journey. I believe in you. Take care. This is incredibly hard. Incredibly hard. My voice is really doesn't want to work. I'm losing this. So, I'm talking to my friend. Who is this friend? Who are you, my friend? Kriska. Oh, you're helpful. You're so helpful. Jump.